Now, John Hanbury, we're on a very historic site here, aren't we?
Yes. My understanding from what I'd been told by my father and other people that I'd asked questions about Mountbrown House. Mountbrown House was situated here. It is an oval-shaped building, and the porch, my father would say, was at this end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a 3-story with a cellars, where there was a kitchen and stuff like that, utility rooms.
And which way was it facing? Was it facing toward that big hill up there, is it?
It was facing towards that area there, that valley.
That's Kinlouis Loch over there then, would it
That's
be?
Kinlouis Loch, yes.
Would it be facing towards, but you can't see the lake from here.
You can't see the lake here now, but
Could
I
you?
know from finding out from some of the elderly people that lived in Mountbrown at the time, prior to the house being knocked, some of the children at the time remember that there was no trees in the way, because the land had not been striped at the time. There was no hedges or banks in the way either. So you could actually see over towards Kinlouis Loch, and again you could see towards Ahargower, which is south of it.
That's down the other direction off over there.
Yeah.
And there's a river down the bottom then, is it?
The river then runs along the bottom below this brae here.
Yeah,
And that goes under the road, and that goes into Westport. That's part of the Mall,
that's part of the Mall.
but not the main contributory.
It joins up with Ballydonlan around there,
Correct.
Scott's
yes,
Corner over
that's right.
that area over there, yeah.
Down near the Banner Road Road now. Yes.
And I suppose that was where the water supply came from the house probably, was it?
Well, I know there's a well actually here that the house had, and they're still there. And I remember as a child, during the winter months, we'd be throwing stones into the well from under a hole in the wall.
What would you do that for?
Well, the well was no longer in use.
Oh, okay, right. Okay,
and
right.
being a child, you'd want to hear a splash, so
And you think it was a deep?
it was deep, yeah, because it should take a while before you'd hear the splash during the winter months, yes.
And how long was the house knocked down then? What happened to the house then eventually?
The house was knocked by the Land Commission when the land was striped, and they used the stones out of the house to build the houses for the tenants that they were bringing into Mountbrown when the land was striped.
Yeah.
And there would have been herds' houses in the village, which would have been used on the estate prior to Brown's leaving here, you know. But the land was striped nevertheless, the houses were built, and the banks were built. Some places there's walls, and consequently there was hedges put down on the banks to keep up a fence between the neighbours, etc.
And roughly how long ago since the land was striped? Was it the 1940s?
I know my grandparents moved from Napabeg down here before Christmas of 1921, because one of my uncles born in September, and I know they had moved in before Christmas of that year.
Okay.
So my great grandparents were alive as well at the time. They moved down with them. So
That'd be the Hanbury family.
yes,
The Hanbury, yeah.
yeah, Auntie Hanbury and Lizzie, his wife.
And who was she? What was her maiden name?
She was Costello.
And she is from over Napabeg as well, was she?
Yes, she was from Napa actually.
Napa.
Napa,
Yeah.
Napa.
Sydney Costellos? Them Costellos?
No, they've been connected to this.
Connected to that.
Yeah,
them
but
Costellos.
they're a different family, just further down the road.
Okay,
Sydney's.
yeah.
Yes.
And are there any of the houses that were built of stone still standing, or are they all replaced?
A few of them are gone, unfortunately, at this stage. My own house
Which is
still
here?
stands after 100 years.
That's it over there?
That's it, yeah. Now it has changed, obviously, since then.
Was it thatched, I suppose, originally, was it? Or would it have been
they've
never
been
thatched?
They've been all slated.
Always.
They were always slated, yeah.
And there's a stone from this house and that house, I think?
Yes,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, most definitely.
So you've kept a connection?
Yes, and I know at one stage we had a problem with flooding years ago, and I got a machine in to alleviate the flooding. And I knew there was a French drain in it down in one of the fields. I'll show you later on. And when we dug down, I found the French drain, and it was the best bit of stonework I ever seen, with the flags of stone built either side, and there was flags on the bottom.
Yeah.
Now, the same drain was supplying water from a well, and it was going into the garden. This was known as the cattle shed. Now that would be. I'll show you again later because I'm probably jumping geographically from where we are at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But to tell you the story, the spring water would come down and into the shed, so the cattle in the cattle shed had fresh water all the time.
Good.
Yeah.
Good farming techniques, as I say.
It was, and one day ahead of their time.
Weren't they ahead of their time?
Yes.
And when do you think the houses were built? Have you an idea? The original house.
The original house was supposed to be built, from my understanding, is 1703.
That must be one of the first buildings built around Westport, is it? That's standing.
Probably, yes.
Probably is, yeah.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
And that shed, would that the stables back there, as you call them?
Yes.
Would that be part of the structure of the building at the time?
Yes, it was, yeah. That was the coach house.
Hmm.
And staff for the coaches would reside upstairs. There was facilities for them.
It's a two-story, yeah?
Yeah, it's a two-story building, yes.
That's a very historic house then, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Hmm. Did the historians show any interest in it, or are they
No.
aware of it, or? I think they're probably not aware of it.
I done a bit of research into it to see was it a listed building, because I was full sure when I realised how old it was, and it's not.
Hmm.
No.
It looks beautiful building here. I suppose we'll have a look at it after a while, and
Yes.
we'll have a
Yes.
peep at it and see what it
Now,
looks like.
Before we move from here, over there where the ESB pole is,
Mm-hmm.
this side of the ESB pole, there's a well there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the well I referred to a few minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that has got a big stone flag on top of it. And underneath it, there's lead to seal the flag onto the stone building for the well.
That's to keep it clean, I assume, to
Yeah,
keep
I
it sealed off. To
presume
seal it off, yeah.
They sealed it off with lead on the top of it.
Okay.
And they put a big flag over it.
And you can see that now, you can, yeah?
No, you can't. It's covered over.
covered
It's
over now.
there. My father did see it years ago, but he reassured me that's what it is.
Okay, yeah.
You know.
Interesting.
Yes. Here, this field was called the lawn because it was the front of their house.
Okay, yeah.
And if you move forward a bit, Ollie, where you can see the gate below.
Oh, can see it down there, yeah?
Yeah, there's a bridge, stone-built bridge there, and that was the avenue up to the house.
From where was the road then?
From the Mountbrown Road coming
Yeah.
in. The Mountbrown Road was different then than it is now.
And did it go across the field over there, do you think, did it?
It went from the coach house.
Yeah?
It went from the coach house into the field.
Okay.
But a lot of that ground has changed since with reclamation, etc. So it's very hard to see where it is. I'd have to try and find a map to show you,
Okay, well,
and I will another day, please God. One other thing, there was a hanging supposed to have taken place on a tree, and the tree was a yew tree, and it was on the left-hand side of that bridge.
the bridge below, yeah?
Yes.
Tree is gone.
The tree is long since gone because my grandfather knocked it, because he had cattle here and some of the cattle died, and they reckon it was where they ate some of the yew tree, and that's bad for livestock. I know yew trees will.
Yeah, that's where they put them in graveyards, isn't it?
That's correct, yes.
And you have no idea why the man was hung?
I
Or
don't
who
know.
he was, no?
I don't know who he was.
You don't know who he was.
But my father said that yew tree had only a half leaf ever when he remembered it as a child coming here.
What is
And
it?
my grandfather knocked it after he lost stock. And some years later, a lady came here, and don't ask me who she was, but she had known about this hanging tree that was at Mountbrown House, and she inquired from my father as to where it was. And my father brought her down this field and showed her, and she was very annoyed to think that the tree was knocked because of the historical significance of it.
And she was correct. Because they last a long time, the yew
Yeah, well,
trees.
they'll never die, of
They
course.
last a long
Yeah,
time,
that's
don't
true,
they? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is the spot where the yew tree was, where the hanging was supposed to have taken place all those years ago.
All those years ago.
Yes.
Sad event.
Sad event indeed, Ali, but look at
That was life at the time.
that was life at the time, you know what I mean? And this field now is known as the orchard, and we still call it the orchard today. But in Brown's time, there was supposed to be 36 apple trees, and there was pear trees. I don't know how many was of that. But there was a stone wall going along this brae, just above the ESP pole there,
Yeah.
going along there, and that was supposed to be the boundary of the orchard field. And from the coach house, there was an avenue down, and it takes in a part of the road there at the back of the field, the one that you would have approached.
Yeah.
And that went down into Drumnahaw, which is the next field down to the next neighbour. And you can still see the road or the path going through their land, and it goes out again on the Mountbrown road. Again, I'd have to go back and show you where the lie of the land is.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And you say something about pigeons at one stage?
Yes, there was a pigeon loft here, just inside where the ground is higher up.
Higher up, yeah.
There was a pigeon loft there for the racing pigeons.
Yeah, and they were into that too, they were, yeah.
They were into that as well.
I suppose at that time there was a lot of sport, wasn't there? A lot of game and
Well, there would have
shooting.
been, and maybe at the time it might have been an easier way to keep in contact with people too. Well, the entrance for the well under the wall would be about here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it would have been. Sorry.
That was the well. That was supplying water for.
That was the well I was referring
Yeah.
to earlier on. That had the lead on the top of it with
Yeah.
the big flag over it.
Oh, okay. And this is the spot where it is.
This is the spot.
It's buried in there someplace.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's just inside the ditch there. Yeah. But again, you can't see it, but I know it's there, and I know if I could find a hole in the wall there, I'd find the spot.
Is it deep down?
I believe it is deep, because I know as a child I'd be throwing stones into it, and the stone would be falling for a while before you hear the splash. Again, it'd be in the winter months when you'd hear it, like.